What is up, guys, and welcome back to another online video. You guys thought for a second there, probably mini heart attacks. No, we're actually here for career mode. I'm sorry to scare you guys like that. But could you imagine if I did? Title of video, career mode, and it turns out to be something completely different. I'm not that horrible, I don't think. But anyway, welcome to another video. This is career mode around the Singapore Grand Prix. We're in the Toro Rosso still this season of career mode drags on forever. It is season 4. We are getting there, guys. We are slowly getting towards the end of the season. Unfortunately for us, we had a tyre wear upgrade fail for the Singapore Grand Prix. It was the only upgrade we had lined up for this race, and unfortunately that hasn't gone on the car. Would have been very crucial as well, because this place can be quite difficult on tyres, especially the rears. So that is a bit of a loss for us, but hopefully it won't be too much of a disadvantage for us this weekend. No other upgrades in the pipeline for this race. We do, however, have a ultimate rear downforce upgrade, and that should be on in time for the next race, maybe. I'll need to check up on that. But practice pace was decent. Danny was showing the true potential of the car, so perhaps we need to make a setup change or two in order to be mixing it with his level. But we'll see as we head into qualifying. It's one of those circuits where you need to really plug yourself in and just chip away at it. And the more you get used to it, you'd be surprised how much time you'll find.
It's time for us to settle down and the drivers below to get fired up. Once again, welcome to Singapore as we get ready for the green light and the start of what should be a fantastic qualifying session. And
yeah, just touching upon, getting, my eye into the circuit. That's something I'll hopefully do in this qualifying session. I will admit that I didn't get fully used to the car and the handling model again in the practice sessions. I kind of raced through those. But now we're going to ramp it up and really put our focus into this session. So pace is pretty good at this point in the career mode if you haven't watched in a little while. The car is still technically the worst car, but we are better than a handful of teams around us. It just, we don't have, say, some of the, fuel efficiency upgrades. We don't have the ERS upgrades that other teams do. We do have a car that has raw performance that can match it pound for pound with a lot of other better cars. But we stormed through qualifying 1. As you can see here, Q2 and Q3 are set to be raining, and so that is making life difficult.
Full wets seem like the best tyre for now.
But yeah, even on this full wet lap, I am struggling for tyre temperature and just rear grip, and that is the explanation as to why the wet tyres are melting in these conditions. It seems we come through the final corner and we are 4.5 seconds off the pace. We were very competitive, and I mean very competitive, in qualifying 1. Danny Kvyat didn't make it through to the next session, which was utterly disappointing. He should be higher than that. Again, not really living up to what the car can do. But we move on to the end of Q2, and it is time for intermediate tyres. You can see we're up by 2.2 seconds. That will only climb to an astonishing gain over the previous delta as we get into the third sector. So as long as I keep it clean, we should be alright. 5 seconds left to go in the session. I probably could have timed this a little bit better, but I feel like we will get a decent run at this to the line through the final corner. Lucas Weber is in P13, so he really needs to get his arse into gear through the final corner, and it is P12 in this Singapore Grand Prix. Not a bad effort, considering that's pretty much where the car is. I'd say, yeah, in that P12 to P15 region. And considering that it was raining, I feel like we did a really good job there to get pretty close to the top 10. 9 tenths away from Charles Leclerc, who was the gatekeeper of P10. So there is a big gap to him, but positional-wise, I feel like I'm pretty happy with where we've qualified for this race. Gives us free choice of tyre for the rest of the weekend, but because it's raining, everyone has that luxury, so we won't quite have the advantage heading into the race. But it looks like it's set to rain at the start as well, so that could make things a little bit spicy for this Singapore Grand Prix. Let's get into it.
As the sun sets over the South China Sea, the sport that never sleeps is alert and raring to go. welcome under the bright lights of the Marina Bay Circuit to another Singapore Grand Prix. Joining us today to oversee all the thrills and spills, it's Anthony Davidson. And great to see you. How are you feeling about the race today, and how are the circuit conditions from what you've seen?
Well, it's looking a bit cold out there, if I'm honest. These tyres have quite a narrow operating window in terms of the temperatures they need to extract the best grip. So with a cold track surface, it's going to be harder to keep those temperatures up, which will lead to lower grip and maybe more mistakes.
Okay, here we go. I know what you can do. Don't let me down.
I'll try not to, Jeff, but welcome to the glow-in-the-dark Singapore Grand Prix. The race organisers have laid out the red carpet all around the circuit. That was a modification that they made to the place overnight, much to the surprise of literally everyone, but it is a welcome change nonetheless. Strategy is basically, you can't plan for what's going to happen in this race since it is going to go to dry, so we're just going to play it on the fly. 5 red lights, and away we finally go for the red carpet, celebrity only Singapore Grand Prix. And it looks like a pretty average start as we head into turn 1, having to defend our position. One of the racing points is getting pretty antsy in the run into turn 1, defending from Raikkonen right behind us as well. A racing point heading into this race is shot to the second best car, so Ricciardo has underperformed quite horrendously, considering that Lance Stroll was well inside the top 5 in Q2. Ricciardo has a lot to answer for this weekend. But anyway, heading into this race, it's going to be quite difficult to overtake and also defend. I've loaded my previous Singapore Grand Prix setup as we go for a dive on Ricciardo. Who says overtaking is hard with the setup we've got? It's P11. Nice little move up the inside there. But what I was alluding to is because it's going to be hard to overtake and defend, it's because I've got so much downforce on the car. 10, 11 wings. We're running F1 2011 game spec downforce here. But that is simply just to get us around the corners. We do suffer with a lack of downforce anyway in this car. And yeah, downforce is everything compared to most circuits. So we'll hopefully make it work for us, but we are going to be a bit of a slug in the straights. We do, however, get ourselves close enough to attack Charles Leclerc into the third sector, and that is job done for us. Thankfully, because of the conditions, the downforce levels that we're running is a bit of a... It doesn't matter as much. We're able to extract a lot more out of the corners, and as long as we can get a nice smooth exit, that's all that really matters. But when it becomes dry, and it will become dry later on in the race, that's when it might become more difficult for us because DRS gets enabled and everyone kind of has a similar feel to the grip conditions as Charles flies right past us on the straight at the end of Sector 1. So, yeah, that's what I was alluding to with the defense in this race. We're going to have to hope for some monumental exits in the straights, so the longer parts of the circuit.
Ricciardo behind. Our gap behind is 9.6 seconds.
And that's just a check up on Ricciardo because there was a massive, massive gap to Ricciardo behind on the minimap, and I was just wondering, like, what the hell is going on? Because Ricciardo is at a racing point, and for the record, I didn't damage his front wing. He just seems to have done that himself, or someone else has crashed into him. It wasn't our doing, which is very interesting. Lap 5, we've lost DRS. Not that it really matters. DRS is not enabled in these conditions, but yeah, I just thought I should probably talk about the track. It's red everywhere, and like it looks literally glow in the dark. It's actually quite hilarious. And if you look to the sky after we see Magnussen retire with an engine failure, you'll notice that it's actually not a night race. Once these clouds clear, or you can kind of see it already, there's some blue sky starting to appear. It's daytime, but we have somehow weird low light conditions. It was really weird. I almost considered restarting, but I thought, no, I'll just press on. I've never seen anything like this, so let's just see how it plays out. And I wanted to see what would happen once it went dry, because it will go dry, and how that would affect the lighting of the circuit. But we have a bit of a slow stop there, having to hold for Lance Stroll, I think, in the fast lane. We rejoin on the circuit on our medium tyres, and we could potentially go to the end of the race on these tyres. Might be a bit of a risk, but we will leave it open for us to switch to softs towards the end of the race if we need to, as we defend from Charles Leclerc into the second sector. Unfortunately, we overcooked the beans on that one, and the virtual safety car gets deployed because we took to the escape road. So this was literally the first few corners out of the pit lane on still a very damp circuit, defending off the racing line, and yeah, that is a lot easier to create that scenario than what you would think. The track conditions are still very, the grip is still very, very low at this stage, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, VSC goes away just as quickly as it appears. That was very weird. Literally nothing wrong with that spin. No need for the virtual safety car. That was a massive overreaction, but regardless, we are back to green flag running. We set the fast lap of the Grand Prix at this point as we run massively wide at the tunnel section. But this is going to be happy hour for everyone, setting fastest laps as the track continues to ramp up in terms of its pace and grip. As you can see, a helicopter shot. The track is still very much bright red, kind of fading to a bit of a light pinky color as the sun is starting to peek out here. So I really don't know what's going on with Singapore this year. It's at an overnight race. As you can see, it's really starting to brighten up now, and the colors are starting to return to somewhat normality, but still not quite there. I feel like maybe this race started at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and we're racing into the sunlight again, which is an interesting prospect. All these F1 drivers, teams, personnel, fans doing an all-nighter just to see this race. So kudos to everyone for taking part. Lap 15, we're putting pressure on Charles Leclerc at this stage. We're coming back towards him a little bit, so maybe our tyre wear is a little bit better. Well, these guys have just been battling that much more in this train. Perhaps Devin Butler is holding them up a little bit because we have caught them up quite a bit in the last few laps. Devin again a little bit slow into turn 1, and Lance Stroll is literally all over this guy. We're all over Charles Leclerc as he doesn't give us much space on the exit of turn 3 there. But we're trying to set this guy out. We're trying to work him over. We open the DRS, and you can see how frustrated I am at the lack of straight line speed in this car. It's only made worse by the fact that the Williams has got such a strong battery. It's got so much acceleration out of traction zones that it makes it near on impossible to contest with him in an area of the track such as the first sector. Anyway, these guys are getting really racy here, side by side for Stroll and Butler. Leclerc is boxed in, and we go clean around the outside with our monumental amount of downforce, and we make that work for us. Around the outside into P9 now. Stroll and Butler still fighting away. I might see if I can be the beneficiary out of all of this. Up and overtake. Again, straight line speed is not quite there. We might go for a lunge here. We go around the outside. Devin gives us the invitation, but he closes that door on the exit, and we have to bide our time. Again, it's P9, but the third sector is where we can showcase our pace because there's no straights here. Even the final corner, that gives us a nice punchy run because we really get rewarded with our high downforce through there. But DRS is enabled. I don't think Devin got a great exit out of this section. We go for the big boy dive bomb, and we make it work into P8 in the Singapore Grand Prix. I am absolutely chuffed with that move because when I set about outbraking him, I thought this was going to go a bit haywire. But we managed to get the move done. But not only that, we got it done cleanly and staying on the track. Absolutely phenomenal move. To the inside, Devin left for space, fair play to him. He's got a bit of a history for not leaving too much space on track, but we get that done, and we are through now for P8 in this Singapore Grand Prix. 14 laps to go, and you can see some people are making a second stop in this race. You can see Hulkenberg and Carlos Sainz, I think, making a stop. They are also going on to another set of medium tyres to round out this race. We have one of either two choices now for the rest of this race. We can either stay out on our mediums and potentially hold on to a podium, which we are sitting into now, as everyone has made their second stop in this race. Or we can play it safe and switch on to a set of softs to finish off this Grand Prix. But I'm decided that I'm going to stick it out and push for a podium and stay out just an extra 8-9 laps to the end of this race, we will be under considerable pressure from those behind. The first of which will be Sebastian Vettel in his very quick Haas. So let's see if we can make this work for us. I think the tyre wear at this stage is at about 55%. So it is pretty line ball as to whether we'll make it to the end of the Grand Prix. But I'm hoping that we can. We'll hopefully look after the tyres a little bit more, use higher gears in order to look after the rears. It's the rear tyres more than anything that are struggling the most. They're a good 10% higher than the others. As Seb, nearly goes to remove there. It's really awkward because it's a bit of a curve on a straight. And when you turn in for that corner, you leave a little bit of a space on the inside. And sometimes the AI see that as an invitation, but really, I'm just taking the natural racing line, which can get you into a bit of a trouble sometimes. But here comes Seb around the outside on the back straight. Much fresher tyres, much faster car, but he can't seem to get it done. We're still on the podium here in this Singapore Grand Prix. We're now forming a bit of a train as Hulkenberg joins the party. Seb goes up the inside into turn one. Can't quite make it work. We squeezed him to the inside and a very tight radius to the corner, and as such had to slow up a lot more than what I did around the outside. 8 laps left in this race, and my chances of probably holding on to this one are very, very slim. We're up into overtake. Seb comes out of nowhere and nearly causes the biggest crash of 2019. I saw him at the last second. I was like, oh, I better let him go through here, and we did. He's through for P2 now. I think Lucas Weber has now made an extra stop. So we are ahead of a Red Bull, which is absolutely phenomenal in this race. 64% on the right rear tyre, and we've still got, 7-8 laps to go in this race. Here comes Hulkenberg around the outside. It's not looking good at this stage. The tyres are getting to that point where they're really starting to drop off. But the problem is we're kind of at that point of no return now. There's only 6 laps left to go in this race. If we pit for softs, we are dooming ourselves to P10, or maybe even worse, a non-points finish. So we're just going to have to stick it out with our current position at the moment. There goes Weber. There goes Sainz. I could have maybe held on to the position for Sainz, but I braked where I did, and I kind of accepted that if I let these guys go, I'll have a better chance of fighting for P6 and holding on to it. 5 laps left in this race, and Stroll in the racing point is the car behind, closing in rapidly on those mediums. There's a yellow flag up ahead as Stroll goes around the outside. Doesn't quite work for him though. But yeah, this is a very depressing part of the Grand Prix. Again, Stroll putting his car in an interesting position in that kink. But thankfully we hold on to the position. The tyres are not in great shape at this stage. The track is fully dry now. You can see it's pretty much midday or something. It is a really weird Singapore Grand Prix, one of which I can't really explain. As Stroll goes up the inside into the middle sector. In the end, he backs out of it. And we still hold on to P6. So if you guys have ever experienced this glitch before, let me know. I don't know what I did to cause it. I just did what I normally do, and that is start the race. But we had a glow-in-the-dark Singapore Grand Prix, and then a morning, sunrise, midday race here, which I think would probably be the first in history, as we got a bright rear puncture on the rear tyre, and as such, our chances of points in the Singapore Grand Prix are over. That just came out of nowhere. I was talking about the weather and the track conditions, and all of a sudden the puncture just comes and surprises us out of nowhere. That's really disappointing. Lucas Weber is in again for another stop. He only recently overtook me a couple of laps ago, and now he's in again for a front wing change. So he's collided with someone. Not really sure who that someone is. But here we go. Slow as ever into the pit lane. The right rear tyre was only on 70 or 71%. It's just the most frustrating thing, because I actually thought that punctures kick in from about 75% onwards. And we weren't even at that point yet. So you guys know, if you've been watching my league races, you'll know that I don't have good luck when it comes to punctures and stretching out tyres beyond their shelf life. And as soon as it hits the threshold of puncture territory, it's like, nope, I'm out of here straight away. There are so many other people in the world that I see get to like 90% tires, and I'm just like, how? How? I would love to know. Lap 30, penultimate lap. This is all for really nothing, to be honest, as we won't get points at this stage. It's just really frustrating because I really felt like we could have held on to P6, probably. I mean, if that tyre wear upgrade that was set to go on the car for this weekend goes on the car, that would have made a massive difference. It would have got us to the end of the race. And not only that, I feel like our pace would have been so much better per lap, to the point where maybe we could have even got better than P6. But that isn't how the cards have fallen. At the end of the day, I have taken the risk, so I do accept full responsibility for what has happened today. But in the end, it's going to be P13, and not the result that the team or myself is looking for.
Okay, pick up rubber and bring it home.
Red Bull pulling out all the stops today. What a great win. Anthony Davidson, what helped them deliver this result, do you think?
Well, time management probably played quite a large role in the outcome of this one. As ever, it's not just about speed, it's all about maintaining that speed consistently over a stint, over a race distance. So being able to keep up the lap times while still being smooth on the controls and gentle on the tyres, that's really where the race was won today.
Red Bull put up an outstanding fight for the front position today, and it's great to see it paid off for them. They do so much for the sport that you can't help but be delighted by today's race win. Let's have a look then at the drivers' standings. Max Verstappen should be pleased with his performance, making gains at the top of the table. It's time to see how things are shaping up in the Constructors' Championship, and it's another title in the bag for Red Bull. After a long and hard-fought season, they built an astonishing car this year, and the glory they'll be taking back to Milton Keynes is fully deserved.
Wow, that is an early championship win in the Constructors for Red Bull. They have an unassailable lead, and no one will catch them for the rest of the season. And the drivers, though, it's not been a great day for Lucas Weber. He got P9 today, and as such, he falls a long way behind his championship rival and teammate, Max Verstappen. 27 points is the difference for those guys. For us, not a productive day. Didn't really lose out in the championship, but regardless, it's a day of what could have been. Could have played it safe and could have got like P10, P9, P8 at a stretch. But yeah, I saw the dangling carrot in front of me, which was a podium at the midway point of the Grand Prix, and I thought, I really backed myself. I thought maybe I could get here if I really stretch it, but yeah, it wasn't to be. I don't know what it is, but I just feel so much more inclined to risk going for these absolutely crazy strategies when the car isn't quite there, just to pull off a miracle. But yeah, it just seems that we left ourselves with too much to do in that race. Upgrades, we're going to amend the tyre wear upgrade, which failed for this race. It'll go on the car for the next race. And we're also going to do a minor upgrade for the front downforce, which will hopefully put us in a position where in the next race, we can actually go for an ultimate front downforce upgrade. And that should hopefully get on the car in time for, I don't know, maybe USA, or hopefully there's a few rounds left before the end of the season where we can actually utilize that for a couple of races and maybe even challenge those top teams. We are getting towards the business end of this season now, and barring any kind of last minute regulation change, we should be set to go full steam ahead with our upgrades to charge towards the front guys in Formula 1. But we are running out of upgrades though, and we still are the slowest car, which is a little bit scary. But I hope that the performance index is making it look worse than what it actually is. We already know that already, but we will truly know where the car stands after the next couple of ultimate upgrades go on the car. But regardless, that has been me for today, the Singapore Grand Prix. Apologies about the strategy. Didn't quite go our way today, but I know in the future it will. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you guys for a brand new video very soon.